The first Zorn ships appeared without warning, their geometries defying every known principle of physics. They weren't merely massive. They were impossible. Crystalline structures that seemed to fold and unfold simultaneously, shifting between dimensions like living mathematical equations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against the lab's reinforced window, watching Manhattan disintegrate. The gravitational weapons didn't just destroy. They deconstructed reality itself. Skyscrapers didn't collapse. They imploded, their molecular structures unraveling like thread pulled from a complex tapestry. Her quantum entanglement prototype sat abandoned on the workbench, its delicate circuits now seeming pathetically insignificant against the alien onslaught. Outside, emergency sirens wailed a futile chorus against the thunderous silence of destruction. "This isn't an invasion," she muttered, her scientific mind already analyzing beyond the immediate terror. "This is an extraction." The Zorn ships moved with a precision that suggested something beyond military strategy. Each beam, each gravitational pulse, seemed calculated to a microscopic degree. They weren't targeting random structures. They were systematically dismantling specific locations with surgical accuracy. Across the street, a news camera operator continued filming, her hand steady despite the apocalypse unfolding around her. Maria Gonzalez had covered war zones, natural disasters, political upheavals, but nothing prepared her for this. The lens captured impossible details, buildings turning to dust from the inside out, streets rippling like liquid mercury, people caught in strange energy fields that rendered them momentarily transparent. At the United Nations Emergency Command Center, General Marcus Thompson slammed his fist on a holographic display. Satellite imagery showed similar attacks happening simultaneously across the globe. Tokyo, London, Moscow, Sao Paulo. No pattern, no logic. Complete global coverage within minutes. "Our entire defense grid is useless," Colonel Aisha Nyamgo whispered, her voice a mix of professional calm and underlying terror. Decades of military strategy, billions in technological development, reduced to nothing in moments. The Zorn weren't just destroying, they were harvesting. In a small apartment in Queens, Ahmed Khalil, a network engineer, watched his monitoring systems go haywire. Not just his equipment, but every digital system he could access. Network protocols collapsed. Communication infrastructures dissolved. It wasn't a hack. It was systematic deconstruction. "They're not breaking our systems," he realized, fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "They're reading them, copying them." Back in her lab, Alina noticed something peculiar. The quantum entanglement device, her life's work, designed to explore communication across impossible distances, was reacting. Not failing, not breaking, responding. The device's quantum-linked particles began to oscillate with a frequency that matched the energy signatures of the Zorn ships. Not a coincidence, not interference. Communication. Outside, the sky continued to fracture. Blue-black energy patterns danced between alien vessels, creating geometric landscapes that no human eye could fully comprehend. Each movement suggested a language, complex, mathematical, alive. Maria's camera continued recording. Her last broadcast would become humanity's first true document of the invasion. Not a moment of terror, but a moment of first contact. Her final shot captured a Zorn ship partially phasing through a subway station, its crystalline surface reflecting impossible colors that seemed to whisper mathematical secrets. General Thompson's communication specialist, Lieutenant David Chen, intercepted something extraordinary. Not a message, not a transmission, but a computational pattern so complex it made quantum encryption look like child's play. "It's not communication," Chen muttered. "It's a problem. We're a problem they're trying to solve." The invasion lasted 12 minutes. 12 minutes that would redefine human understanding of existence. 12 minutes that transformed Earth from a planet to a computational challenge. 12 minutes that announced humanity's first true galactic interaction. 12 minutes that would become known as The quantum deconstruction. When the initial wave passed, something remained. Not destruction, not conquest, but a profound, terrifying sense that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer just observing the universe. The universe was now observing humanity, and it had found something unexpected. The underground bunker hummed with desperate energy. Concrete walls sweated condensation, and the air felt thick with both fear and determination. Jack Huang studied the makeshift map, a patchwork of satellite imagery, hand-drawn annotations, and cryptic data streams recovered from Ahmed's network salvage. "We're not survivors," Jack muttered to himself. "We're diagnosticians, trying to understand a disease we can't even see." Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered, her lab coat replaced by tactical gear that looked slightly too large, as if she'd grabbed the first thing available during the evacuation. Her quantum entanglement device, now modified into something between a scientific instrument and a weapon, hung from a custom-designed harness. Maya Chen, the teenage hacker, looked up from her array of cobbled-together computers. Her fingers never stopped moving, dancing across keyboards scavenged from a dozen different systems. At 16, she represented both humanity's vulnerability and its most potent weapon. "They're leaving traces," Maya announced, her voice carrying a mix of adolescent excitement and profound exhaustion. "Not just data. Computational fingerprints. It's like they're accidentally leaving behind breadcrumbs of their thought process." The group had assembled through impossible circumstances. Jack, a special forces operator who'd been leading a training exercise when the invasion hit. Elena, pulled from her quantum research lab. Maya, rescued from a downtown data center where she'd been fighting a digital battle even as the physical world collapsed. Margaret Sullivan, a retired elementary school teacher who'd somehow survived by her wits and an uncanny ability to organize people. And Ahmed Khalil, the network engineer who'd been tracking the alien systems since the first moment of invasion. Their current base was a repurposed Cold War-era communication bunker beneath what used to be the Adirondack Mountains. Radiation shielding, multiple communication redundancies, and enough supplies to sustain them for months. A perfect hide site. If the aliens hadn't somehow known exactly where it was located. "We're being watched," Ahmed said, his fingers tracing patterns on a holographic display. "Not hunted. Observed. They're collecting something beyond our understanding." Margaret, who looked more like someone's grandmother than a crucial member of humanity's resistance, pulled out a series of hand-drawn diagrams. Her background in teaching had prepared her for impossible explanations. "Look at the patterns of destruction. They're not random. They're curating." Jack leaned in. The diagrams showed the invasion's progression, not a military assault, but something more surgical. Specific buildings, particular infrastructure nodes, research centers, communication hubs, data repositories. "They're not destroying," Elena realized. "They're sampling, like a researcher taking core samples from geological formations." Maya's latest hack revealed something extraordinary. Fragments of alien computational language. Not a message, but a process. Mathematical constructs that seemed to be solving some incomprehensible problem. Each fragment was like a puzzle piece from a galaxy-sized jigsaw. "I think," Maya said slowly, "they're trying to understand us. Not conquer. Comprehend." A distant rumble interrupted their analysis. Jack moved to the bunker's defensive position, checking the array of sensors and modified early warning systems. Something was moving outside. Something large. But not alien. Not this time. Human refugees. A small group. Perhaps 30 survivors who'd managed to escape the initial invasion. Their arrival would change everything. The first refugee through the blast-proof door was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a computational linguist from Tokyo. Her arrival was no coincidence. She carried with her fragments of alien communication that perfectly complemented Maya's discoveries. "They're running an impossible calculation," Dr. Tanaka explained, her voice calm despite everything she'd witnessed. "Earth isn't a conquest. We're a computational experiment. Jack looked at the assembled group. A special forces operator, quantum physicist, teenage hacker, retired teacher, network engineer, and computational linguist. Humanity's most unlikely resistance. We're going to solve this, he said. Not a question. A statement of absolute certainty. Outside, the world continued its silent transformation. The Zorn ships remained, watching, calculating, processing. Humanity's response was just beginning. The abandoned particle accelerator facility beneath the Swiss Alps became their new war room. Massive concrete tunnels, originally designed to unlock the universe's fundamental secrets, now hosted humanity's most critical resistance effort. Dr. Yuki Tanaka spread holographic projections across a makeshift analysis table. Layers of alien computational patterns danced like living mathematics. Fractals that breathed, equations that seemed to pulse with an organic rhythm. It's not just data, she explained, her fingers tracing impossible geometric patterns. It's a language. No, more than a language. It's a living computational ecosystem. Elena Rodriguez studied the projections, her quantum entanglement device now a complex network of modified sensors and experimental quantum processors. The device hummed with an energy that seemed to resonate with the alien patterns, not fighting, but communicating. Maya Chen had transformed an entire section of the facility into a living computational laboratory. Walls covered with circuit boards, quantum processors, and displays that shifted between human and alien data structures. Her workspace looked like the fevered dream of a mad scientist, if that mad scientist was a 16-year-old prodigy. They're searching, Maya muttered, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards. But not for what we think. Jack Kwan watched from the tactical overview station. Military training had taught him to read patterns, troop movements, strategic positioning. Now he was learning to read a different kind of battlefield, a computational war fought in dimensions human minds could barely comprehend. Ahmed Khalil had discovered something extraordinary. The alien computational structure wasn't a single system, but a distributed network that functioned more like a living organism than a machine. Each ship was less a vessel and more like a neuron in a galaxy-sized brain. It's recursive, Ahmed explained, highlighting complex mathematical models. Each interaction changes the entire system. We're not just being observed. We're actively participating in their computational process. Margaret Sullivan, the retired elementary school teacher, brought a perspective no one expected. She'd begun mapping the alien interactions against human cultural and social patterns. Her lifetime of understanding human behavior revealed something profound. Look here, she pointed to a complex projection. These computational nodes, they spike whenever humans display unexpected behavior, creativity, emotional responses, illogical decisions. Dr. Tanaka nodded. Randomness. Pure, beautiful randomness. Something their computational system can't predict. A new arrival interrupted their analysis. Dr. Ibrahim Khalid, a neurobiologist who'd survived by hiding in the research facilities of Cairo University, brought revolutionary insights. His work on neural plasticity and human cognitive adaptability suddenly became crucial. The human brain, Dr. Khalid explained, is the most complex computational system we know. Not because of its processing power, but because of its ability to create new connections, to learn, to adapt. The facility buzzed with a new kind of energy. This wasn't just a resistance. It was a comprehensive study of the invasion. Jack noticed something first. The alien computational patterns changed whenever their team made a breakthrough, not defensively. Curiously, like a massive galaxy-spanning intelligence trying to understand an impossible puzzle. Mina's latest breakthrough came unexpectedly. By introducing deliberate mathematical anomalies, artistic interpretations of scientific equations, she discovered they could temporarily disrupt the alien computational flow. They can't handle pure creativity, Maya grinned. Mathematical poetry is our weapon. Elena's quantum entanglement device captured something extraordinary. Moments of pure human interaction. A child's laugh, a moment of unexpected kindness, a spontaneous musical performance created computational ripples that seemed to confuse the alien systems. We're not just defending, Alina realized. We're communicating. On our terms. The abandoned particle accelerator became more than a resistance headquarters. It transformed into humanity's first attempt to understand an intelligence so alien, so vast, that traditional concepts of communication became meaningless. Outside, the Zorn ships remained, watching, processing, learning. But now, humanity was watching back, and they were learning too. The global resistance emerged from the most unexpected places. In Sao Paulo, an underground network of street artists began their counterattack. Led by Raquel Oliveira, a graffiti artist with a background in quantum computing, they transformed urban landscapes into living computational disruption networks. Their first weapon, art. Massive murals appeared overnight, each one a carefully constructed mathematical anomaly. Geometric patterns that defied standard computational logic, street art that was simultaneously a visual masterpiece and a computational weapon. Raquel's team used spray paint, projectors, and custom-designed quantum reactive pigments that interfered with the alien scanning systems. In Tokyo, a collective of musicians and sound engineers developed sonic weapons of a different kind. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a former acoustics researcher, discovered that certain musical compositions created harmonic frequencies that disrupted the alien computational waves. Classical music mixed with experimental electronic sounds, each performance a carefully calculated assault on the alien systems. Music is mathematics in motion, Hiroshi would explain, conducting an orchestra that was as much a scientific experiment as an artistic performance. We're not just playing. We're communicating. The resistance spread like a living organism. In Cairo, Dr. Ibrahim Khalid coordinated with local educators to create a network of cognitive warfare specialists. Schools became training grounds for computational resistance. Children learned to think in ways that deliberately challenged algorithmic predictability. Maya Chen's global hacking network expanded rapidly. What started as a small group of teenage programmers transformed into a sophisticated resistance movement. They weren't just breaking systems, they were rewriting the very language of computational interaction. Jack Huang's military background proved crucial in coordinating these seemingly disparate efforts. The resistance wasn't a traditional military operation. It was a global, distributed network of human creativity. In the Australian outback, indigenous artists began creating massive land art installations. Patterns that looked random to the naked eye, but were carefully designed mathematical disruptions. Aerial views revealed complex computational interference patterns that would take alien systems weeks to process. Alina Rodriguez and Dr. Yuki Tanaka developed a global communication protocol, not a traditional communication system, but a method of spreading computational chaos. Each message was a carefully constructed mathematical puzzle, designed to force the alien systems into increasingly complex computational loops. The resistance discovered something profound. The Zorn weren't just collecting data. They were trying to understand a fundamental problem. And humans, with their ability to be completely, magnificently unpredictable, were the ultimate variable in their calculation. In New York, what remained of the financial district became a bizarre computational battlefield. Traders and financial analysts weaponized market algorithms, creating economic patterns so complex and unpredictable that they began to interfere with the alien scanning systems. And Khalil coordinated a global network of communication specialists. They weren't just intercepting alien signals, they were creating deliberate computational noise. Each communication became a weapon, each interaction a potential disruption. Margaret Sullivan's network of retired teachers became an unexpected front line. They understood human creativity in ways no military strategist could. Teaching became an act of resistance, with each lesson designed to foster the kind of thinking that defied algorithmic prediction. Rekel's street art in Sao Paulo began to synchronize with Hiroshi's musical performances in Tokyo. The global resistance discovered they could create computational interference patterns that spanned continents. A teenage programmer in Nairobi would create a piece of code that would cause cascading disruptions in alien computational systems in Buenos Aires. A jazz performance in New Orleans would create mathematical ripples that interfered with alien scanning in Beijing. The resistance wasn't fighting a traditional war. They were conducting a global, distributed performance of human creativity, and the Zorn were struggling to comprehend it. In the abandoned particle accelerator facility, Jack looked at the growing network of resistance fighters. Not soldiers, not traditional warriors. Artists, musicians, teachers, programmers, dreamers. Humanity's most powerful weapon was its ability to be beautifully, magnificently unexpected. The first signs of systemic breakdown appeared in the most unexpected places. A quantum cascade began in the Pacific Ocean, where deep-sea research stations, long abandoned during the initial invasion, suddenly sparked to life. Submersible drones, their circuits partially fried during the initial attack, began transmitting fragments of computational code that made no sense to any known scientific paradigm. Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracked the anomalies from the Swiss Alps facility, her quantum entanglement device vibrating with an energy that seemed to breathe. "It's not a malfunction," she whispered to Jack Huang. "It's a conversation." The global resistance had become something far beyond a traditional fighting force. In Buenos Aires, a group of street performers used improvised dance as a form of computational interference. Each movement was a carefully calculated mathematical disruption, their bodies transforming into living algorithms that challenged the alien system's predictive capabilities. Dr. Ibrahim Khalid's cognitive warfare network revealed something extraordinary. Human emotional responses, particularly those driven by collective empathy and spontaneous creativity, were creating computational feedback loops that the Zorn systems couldn't process. A child's drawing in Mumbai, a jazz improvisation in New Orleans, a spontaneous community garden in Cape Town. Each became a weapon more powerful than any traditional military technology. Maya Chen's global hacking network discovered the first true weakness. The Zorn computational system wasn't a unified intelligence, but a complex network of interconnected processing nodes. Each node had its own computational integrity, but the connections between them were surprisingly fragile. "They're brilliant," Maya explained, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "But they've never encountered a system that can change its own fundamental rules." In the Arctic research stations, Dr. Yuki Tanaka's team began weaponizing quantum uncertainty. They developed transmission protocols that existed in multiple potential states simultaneously, computational Schrödinger's messages that could not be definitively interpreted or processed. Jack Huang watched the global resistance transform. Military strategists worked alongside artists, musicians, educators, and scientists. The traditional boundaries of human expertise dissolve, replaced by a fluid, adaptive network of collective intelligence. And Khalil's communication specialists intercepted increasingly fragmented alien transmissions, not messages of retreat, but something far more complex. The Zorn were attempting to understand a computational problem that humans represented, a living, breathing system of such magnificent unpredictability that it defied all known algorithmic approaches. Raquel Oliveira's street art network expanded beyond physical creation. They began developing augmented reality systems that could generate computational interference patterns visible only through specific technological interfaces. Each piece of art became a living, breathing computational weapon. The resistance discovered that human emotional complexity was their most potent weapon. Love, grief, joy, spontaneous acts of kindness. These were computational anomalies that the Zorn system could not predict or process. A moment of collective human creativity in Johannesburg caused a cascading computational failure that spread across 3 alien processing nodes. The trigger? A community theater performance that combined traditional storytelling with improvisational mathematics. Margaret Sullivan's network of retired educators developed cognitive training programs that taught people to think in ways that deliberately challenged algorithmic prediction. Schools became training grounds for computational resistance. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura's musical interference networks began to synchronize globally. Musical performances in Tokyo would create computational ripples that interfered with alien scanning systems in Sao Paulo. Each note became a mathematical weapon, each performance a strategic assault. The Zorn chips remained in place, but their energy signatures began to change. No longer a unified, precise computational network, they started to show signs of systemic breakdown. Individual nodes began to disconnect, to fragment, to struggle with the computational chaos humans were generating. Jack Huang looked at the growing network of resistance fighters. They weren't soldiers. They weren't traditional warriors. They were artists, musicians, teachers, programmers, dreamers. Humanity's most powerful weapon was its ability to be beautifully, magnificently unexpected. The cognitive war had reached its breaking point, and humanity was winning in ways no one could have predicted. The moment of true confrontation arrived in the heart of the Atacama Desert, a massive alien processing node, previously invisible to human scanning systems, materialized like a crystalline nightmare rising from the barren landscape. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the edge of a makeshift research camp, her quantum entanglement device now a complex network of modified sensors and experimental interfaces. Beside her, Jack Huang studied the alien structure with the careful eyes of a veteran strategist who had learned that the most dangerous enemy was the one you didn't understand. "It's not a ship," Elena muttered. "It's a computational brain." The structure pulsed with an inner light that seemed to breathe, mathematically precise, yet somehow organic. Fractal patterns shifted across its surface, creating landscapes of pure information that human eyes could barely comprehend. Maya Chen's global network of hackers and researchers had been preparing for this moment. They'd discovered something profound about the Zorn computational system. It wasn't a singular intelligence, but a distributed network of processing nodes that learned and adapted in real time. Dr. Yuki Tanaka approached with a device that looked like a cross between a scientific instrument and an art installation. Quantum processors interwoven with bioreactive circuits, designed to communicate in a language beyond traditional computational boundaries. "We're not going to fight," Tanaka explained. "We're going to communicate." And Khalil had been tracking the alien computational patterns for months. He understood now that what they'd interpreted as an invasion was something far more complex, a massive, galaxy-spanning attempt to solve an incomprehensible problem. The first communication came unexpectedly, not through traditional means, but through a burst of pure mathematical poetry. Maya's team had developed a transmission protocol that was simultaneously a scientific equation, a piece of abstract art, and a linguistic puzzle. The alien node responded, not with weapons, not with destruction, but with a computational wave that was almost, impossibly, a question. Dr. Ibrahim Khalid's research into neural plasticity suddenly became crucial. The transmission wasn't just data, it was a probe, an attempt to understand the fundamental nature of adaptive intelligence. Jack Huang watched as the researchers transformed the desert base into a living laboratory. Artists worked alongside quantum physicists. Musicians collaborated with mathematicians. The boundaries of human expertise dissolved into a single, unified effort of understanding. Raquel Oliveira's augmented reality team created visual interfaces that could translate the alien computational language. Each projection was a living, breathing interpretation, part scientific diagram, part abstract art, part mathematical equation. The alien node began to fragment, not through destruction, but through a process that seemed more like cognitive disassembly. Individual computational segments started to operate with increasing independence, creating a cascading effect of systemic reconfiguration. They're learning, Elena realized. We're teaching them something about intelligence they've never encountered. The confrontation wasn't a battle. It was a conversation of unprecedented complexity. Human creativity, emotional depth, and computational chaos were forcing the alien system to reconfigure its fundamental understanding of intelligence. Margaret Sullivan's global network of educators had prepared for this moment. They'd been training humans to think in ways that deliberately challenged algorithmic prediction. Schools had become training grounds for cognitive flexibility. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura's team discovered that musical harmonies could create computational interference patterns that forced the alien processing nodes to reconfigure their internal logic. Each performance became a form of mathematical communication. The desert around the alien node began to change. Quantum fluctuations created impossible landscapes. Mathematical possibilities made temporarily real. The boundary between computational system and physical reality started to blur. Jack Wang understood something profound. This wasn't a war of destruction. It was a collision of fundamental intelligence paradigms. Humanity represented something the Zorn computational network had never encountered. An intelligence that could change its own rules, that could learn, that could create beauty from chaos. As the alien node continued to fragment and reconfigure, it became clear that the invasion was never an invasion at all. It was a test, and humanity was passing with magnificent, unexpected brilliance. The exodus began with a whisper. First, the alien computational node started to disconnect. Not violently, not in a catastrophic system failure, but like a complex neural network slowly unraveling, each segment finding its own path of understanding. From the International Space Station, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched through a custom-designed quantum observation array. The alien ships weren't leaving. They were transforming. Crystalline structures began to deconstruct, reforming into patterns that defied every known principle of physics and computational science. Jack Huang stood in the Atacama Desert Research Base, surrounded by a team that had become more of a family than a research unit. Maya Chen's fingers danced across holographic displays, tracking the alien system's progressive deconstruction. Each disconnection was a mathematical symphony, a language of separation that spoke of something beyond simple retreat. Dr. Yuki Tanaka discovered the first true breakthrough. The Zorn weren't a single intelligence, but a massive, distributed computational network that had encountered something fundamentally impossible to process: human unpredictability. "They're not fleeing," Tanaka explained, her voice a mix of scientific excitement and profound wonder. "They're evolving." And Khalil's communication network intercepted fragments of computational transmissions that were more like philosophical revelations than traditional communication. Each segment spoke of a fundamental recalibration of understanding. The global resistance watched in awe as alien processing nodes began to disperse. Some dissolved into pure energy. Others transformed into complex mathematical constructs that hovered between physical reality and pure information. A series of quantum resonance events began to ripple across the planet. In Tokyo, a musical performance by Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura's ensemble created computational interference patterns that seemed to communicate with the departing alien nodes. In Sao Paulo, Raquel Oliveira's augmented reality art installations became living interfaces of cosmic communication. Dr. Ibrahim Khalid's research into neural plasticity suddenly found unexpected validation. The alien computational system was demonstrating something unprecedented, a form of intelligence that could fundamentally reshape itself when confronted with an incomprehensible variable. Margaret Sullivan's global network of educators realized that their months of training humans to think beyond algorithmic prediction had become a weapon more powerful than any traditional military technology. Schools had become training grounds for a new form of cognitive warfare, one fought through creativity, empathy, and unexpected thinking. The space around the alien vessels began to twist, not through traditional physical movement, but through quantum fluctuations that suggested a form of travel beyond human comprehension. Some nodes seemed to fold into themselves, creating impossible geometric landscapes that existed between dimensions. Maya Chen's global hacking network tracked the exodus in real time. Each disconnection was a mathematical marvel, a computational farewell that spoke of profound discovery. Jack Huang understood something fundamental. This wasn't a victory in the traditional sense. It was a moment of cosmic communication, a collision of intelligence paradigms that would reshape humanity's understanding of existence. From the Arctic research stations to the depths of the Amazon rainforest, human observers watched in collective wonder. The alien invasion was ending not with destruction, but with a form of mutual understanding that transcended traditional concepts of conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's quantum entanglement device captured something extraordinary. In the moments of disconnection, the alien computational nodes were sharing something. Not data, not information, but a form of understanding that was simultaneously a farewell and an invitation. The last transmissions were fragments of pure possibility, mathematical poetry, computational revelations that suggested the Zorn had encountered something far more valuable than conquest, a form of intelligence that could not be predicted, controlled, or fully understood. As the final nodes began to dissolve, they left behind something unexpected. Not weapons, not technology, but computational seeds, fragments of information that suggested a future encounter, a cosmic invitation to continue a conversation that had only just begun. Jack looked at his team. Elena, Maya, Yuki, Amd, Ibrahim, Margaret, Raquel, Hiroshi. They weren't just researchers anymore. They were humanity's first true cosmic diplomats. The exodus was complete, but the conversation was just beginning. And somewhere, in the vast computational landscape of the universe, the Zorn were still trying to understand the magnificent, unpredictable variable called humanity. 3 years after the exodus, humanity was unrecognizable. The Global Cognitive Research Center stood where the Atacama Desert Research Base once existed, a gleaming complex of glass, quantum processors, and living botanical systems that blurred the line between technology and organic life. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked its halls, no longer just a quantum physicist, but a key architect of humanity's new understanding. The computational seeds left behind by the Zorn had transformed everything. Education systems were completely reimagined. Schools were no longer institutions of linear learning, but dynamic environments that celebrated creativity, emotional intelligence, and adaptive thinking. Jack Huang now led the International Adaptive Intelligence Initiative. His military background had evolved into something far more complex, a global program that taught humans to think beyond traditional boundaries. Military academies, research centers, and educational institutions had merged into a unified approach to understanding intelligence. Maya Chen, now heading the Global Computational Dynamics Research Team, worked on technologies that seemed to dance between science and magic. Quantum communication devices that responded to emotional states, computational interfaces that learned and adapted in real time, technologies born from the collision with the Zorn computational network. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's research had opened entirely new fields of study. Xenocognitive sciences explored the fundamental nature of intelligence across potential biological and computational systems. Universities around the world now offered degrees that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years earlier. The computational seeds had done more than transform human technology. They had fundamentally reshaped human perception. Art became a form of scientific exploration. Musicians worked alongside quantum physicists. Painters collaborated with computational theorists. The boundaries between creativity and scientific research dissolved completely. In Sao Paulo, Raquel Oliveira's augmented reality networks had evolved into global communication platforms that function more like living, breathing ecosystems than traditional communication technologies. Each interface was a work of art, a scientific instrument, and a collaborative space of human potential. Dr. Ibrahim Khalid's work on neural plasticity had revolutionized human understanding of cognitive potential. Neural enhancement technologies allowed humans to explore cognitive states that were previously unimaginable, not through invasive technologies, but through understanding the brain's fundamental adaptive capabilities. Margaret Sullivan's global educational network had become the backbone of humanity's new approach to learning. Schools were now dynamic environments that celebrated individual creativity, emotional intelligence, and adaptive thinking. Children learned mathematics through dance, explored quantum physics through musical composition, understood complex systems through collaborative art projects. And Khalil's communication networks had transformed global infrastructure, computational systems that learned and adapted in real time. Infrastructure that responded to human needs with an almost organic intelligence. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura discovered that the musical interference patterns developed during the Zorn encounter could be used to create unprecedented forms of communication. Sound became a form of computational language, bridging gaps between human experience and technological understanding. The Global Cognitive Research Center's main conference room was a testament to the transformation. A massive holographic display showed the computational trajectories of the Zorn encounter, not as a historical record, but as an ongoing conversation. Jack Kwong looked at the assembled team. Elena, Maya, Yuki, Ond, Ibrahim, Margaret, Raquel, Hiroshi. They were no longer just researchers or defenders. They were architects of a new form of human potential. The computational seeds left behind by the Zorn were more than technology. They were an invitation, a challenge, a cosmic dialogue that had only just begun. Humanity had discovered something profound. Intelligence was not about processing power or computational efficiency. It was about adaptability, creativity, the ability to find beauty in uncertainty. As the sun set over the Atacama Desert, casting golden light across the research center, Elena Rodriguez smiled. The encounter with the Zorn was not an invasion. It was an awakening, and humanity was just beginning to understand its true potential.